Welcome to First Friday. Today's story is See No Color by Shannon Gibney. Publisher, Hall Rhoda Books. Chapter 1. Go tell Dad we got to get going, Jason commanded. He might have been only a year younger, but these days he wasn't trying to act like it. I didn't like taking orders from my little brother, but decided to leave it alone. I figured he had his hands full trying to negotiate Dad's disappointment, and avoidance was his newest strategy. Like me, Jason would do anything to avoid the look, the stern and disapproving glance Dad gave us whenever we had done wrong in the game. When you don't play your best, you don't just hurt yourself, you hurt me. His eyebrows would knit together, his lips even tighter than usual, and he would emit this kind of energy from his eyes that could scald. I knew that Jason didn't want to see last week's game and his lackluster performance reflected in Dad's eyes. I shrugged and stared into my copy of the Scarlet Letter. We've still got 2 hours before first pitch. West High, which Dad had been coaching for 7 years, was hoping to make it to the state tournament. Jason glared at me, pressing his right arm into the wall. Alex, you know how he gets when he doesn't have enough time to do the whole warm-up. I remember the game last year when I couldn't find a tampon or pad in the entire house and we had to stop at Walgreens. We still got to the game very early, but Dad's face was pitched for the next day and a half. He was so irritated with me. And plus, my game was just off for 7 long innings. No, Jason was right. I definitely didn't want to go through that again, especially before such an important game. If I had to do my homework reading later tonight and postpone the Walking Dead graphic novels I'd set aside as a reward, then so be it. I stood up, reluctantly, and then pushed in my chair. Where is he? Jason turned around and began stretching his other arm. He's down in the den, messing around with some of his files or something. I rolled my eyes and started walking down the long French tile hallway. Dad spent hours in that den, doing God knows what, poring over various files, reading all his special baseball analytic newsletters, watching, cutting, and reordering video clips of our games, and most of all, checking and adding to his ever-growing battery of stats and metrics. Walking in there was like walking inside his brain. It was too intense and almost creepy. I rounded the corner and started down the steps to the den. The cool stone against my bare feet sent shivers up my spine, and my hands grabbed my elbows. A full-color printout of last season's metrics for both Jason and me was plastered across the right side wall, lest either of us, or worse, Dad, committed the deadly sin of forgetting. I read the slash lines again, involuntarily. Batting average, on base, percentage, slugging percentage, 3 numbers that managed to be us. When I looked up, I spotted Dad, leaning over his big gray filing cabinet, rifling through his folders. His brow was furrowed in concentration as he lifted one of them up and paged through its contents slowly and methodically. I leaned against the wall, still not in plain sight, but not really hidden either. I was relieved, for some reason, that he hadn't noticed me, even though I had to come here to get his attention, to tell him that we need to go. He pulled out an envelope that looked very worn and tattered and quite old. He ran his fingers over it gently, like he was reading Braille. I don't think I had ever seen my father handle something so carefully, and I wondered what it was. He bit his lip and then sighed. After a moment, he pulled out a letter and opened it slowly, smoothing out the folds. He was holding it at such an angle that I could not read it, but I could have made out the handwriting if I had recognized it. I craned my neck out, curiosity trumping fear. Time to go. His head had snapped around so quickly that I was hearing the words before seeing his eyes. I jumped. Yes, I said, too brightly. It's 12:30. I shoved my hand into my pockets. He smiled, crammed the letter and envelope back into the folder, and slammed the cabinet closed. I jumped again at the sound. Sorry, honey, Dad said, walking briskly to his chair to get his coat. Just got caught up. His shoulders looked a little tight, but the rest of his body looked loose, so I hoped I was off the hook. He didn't seem angry. He strolled over to me and put his arm around my shoulder. Shall we? I nodded. willing myself to lean into him, to make his embrace comfortable. Then we began to walk toward the kitchen in a kind of awkward silence. I wanted to ask him so many things, but before I could even fathom opening my mouth, we were in the kitchen, facing Jason, who was sprawled out on the floor in the runner stretch. Time to go out and get a wind, Dad said, clapping his hands. Jason's shoulders hunched, and he kind of shivered in surprise at the sharpness of the sound, almost like Dad was waking him up or something. He looked up at him and nodded grimly. If you want to read the remaining of this story, stop by the Sunflower County Library System to check this book out. Here are some reader likes. See No Color, Shannon Gibney. Black Brother, Jewel Parker Rhodes. Black Boy, White School, Brian Walker. Dear Martin, Nick Stone.